All right, I think let's get started. So today we're going to learn maintenance of Ethereum and trying to understand how the technicalities of this Ethereum has been laid out and how it has been trying to solve the mutability and the blockchain features, like how it has got evolved and how things has turned out since then, and what is their future roadmap, and we'll try to connect every other piece of puzzle if we can hold off until the end of this presentation. So this is a high-level overview. We're going to cover Ethereum Basics and have some sort of a deep dive under the hood, and how this application deployment has been interrelated, and why we have to even move our web applications over towards blockchain, and what promises it is going to offer to the enterprises going forward. So this is the history of the Ethereum. Vitalik Buterin is the brainchild. I think Ethereum is his brainchild. He was actually a Russian-Canadian programmer who had founded this Ethereum by publishing a white paper when he was 19 years old. So I think his name needs no introduction, at least in the blockchain space and the cryptocurrency space. I think that Ethereum is just like his brainchild. So this is the history of Ethereum, the timeline. Like the idea has been sprouted around 2013. He went for a crowdfunding in 2014. Ethereum Foundation has been laid out at 2014. A lot of these foundational co-members are not part of Ethereum anymore. Charles Hoskinson is one. Gavin Wood, I think, moved on to Polkadot, and Joe Lubin had started his own company called Consensus. So there are several other things that happened right after the Genesis block. But right after that, Vitalik is the only one who is still with Ethereum since from the inception. And he's the man for Ethereum even today. The first release that happened on June 2015. The official release has been released on 2016. Since then, Ethereum had started its era of accepting more and more decentralized applications onto this platform. So to understand deep into it, we're not going to cover like how a blockchain will solve the decentralized applications and what decentralized applications are being part of Ethereum at this point in time, but we're just going a little deep into it to understand how this Ethereum has been laid out from a cryptography standpoint, and what are the basic smart contracts, and how it is going to address the problem, like what we really see right now being a centralized system, and what solutions it is going to offer, and what industries it is going to disrupt going forward by providing this immutability and decentralization as their core principles. So blockchain, if you go across, I think probably you guys might have gone through several videos, and you might have got educated by yourself. I think we see accounts like there are two types of accounts and wallets. Blockchain is absolutely based on transactions, and I think Ethereum in specific, not that every other blockchain has the same features. Ethereum in specific is definitely on top of smart contracts. Smart contracts is the foundational footprint for Ethereum. The language which has been used in Ethereum is Solidity. It has been developed by Ethereum Foundation itself. This is not a language which we usually see prior to the Ethereum inception. This is one of its own kind, which Ethereum Foundation had developed on its own just to run the smart contracts on top of blockchain. So when I simply say cryptography, so I think this is a core foundation for the entire blockchain, how it works, like how it is actually trying to provide the security end to end, being a public ledger. So hash functions is one, symmetric cryptography, asymmetric cryptography, signature. So if you go a little deep, like hash function, probably this is the one, like, if you see SHA-256 SHA hash algorithm, where the transactions on top of the block will get hashed out to produce a unique hash, so that way the block which the transactions are being bundled can even try to get connected to the previous block. I think So since being a public ledger, probably I assume that most of you might have heard, I think this is a chain of transactions built on top of blocks. So how these blocks are being interconnected from one to other. So hash is the underlying mechanics which makes these blocks go inline from one to other. So symmetric cryptography, asymmetric cryptography, probably this is a very popular concept, like how this blockchain will function under the hood. Like the digital signatures is one among them too. So a simple example, like asymmetric cryptography is something like, hey, I think I'm going to encrypt my data now with a key, right? So I think I encrypt my key. That's what I think we usually do. Like any of these hard drives, whatever we do, when we try to ship, we simply try to run an encryption key on top of it, and we'll send that key to the other party. As long as he carries the key, he can decrypt the data, no matter whatever we encrypt, right? So that's how I think we call them as symmetric cryptography. So that is how most of these enterprises used to do. Like say when they try to ship the data over the internet or over the device, they encrypt the data with a key, and the other recipient who's trying to receive the data will carry the same key and try to decrypt it. That is what the symmetric cryptography is. So some of the transactions under the hood for the blockchain even needs symmetric cryptography. And the most stunning piece, like why the security of this blockchain, though it has been publicly available for every other individual in this human race, and how the security is being driven by the protocol itself. So that's what the beauty of asymmetric cryptography is. So when asymmetric cryptography comes into the picture, so this is where I think we usually see public-private key integration. So public key is a key which everybody will see. That is a key where you I have some details like how many characters this public key will be, how many characters this private key will be, how the data has been preserved, though you put them on a public ledger. So asymmetric cryptography is something that the protocol will try to derive and decrypt or encrypt the data within the protocol itself to ensure that the other recipient who is going to receive that data, though the protocol is going to encrypt the data, will only be visible for that key only when he passes that private key to that data. So say for example, I'm going to transfer some funds from one account to another account. That's what we usually do, right? For everyone, how it has been protected, right? So the protocol, the Ethereum protocol, is the one who has generated that public key, private key at the inception, right? So that's how you got an account. When you try to create an account from a MetaMask, it is going to interact with the Ethereum blockchain, asking it to provide a public key and a private key. So as long as you carry the private key, which is private to you, the protocol who has created that public key and private key knows that when you really sign a transaction with your private key, the message, the signature, whatever you put on top of that private key is being detected just by you, and only the protocol can even try to accept that. If someone else try to sign the transaction from another wallet, it is going to detect that this signature is not going to be from this specific account. That's why I think the protocol is going to ensure that security. So that is what entire blockchain, though it is being publicly available for everybody in a public ledger, the blockchain is going to promise you that security by implementing the asymmetric cryptography. So in the signature, as I mentioned, it is part of it, like in every other message, which needs to be transacted between one party to another party, needs to be authenticated and authorized by, it can be an account, it can be an individual, it can be a smart contract, and I go deep into that maybe on the future slide. But I think the signatures are the one where the protocol is going to authenticate you to transact the data between one entity to another entity with the clear legitimacy. So there is no counterfeiting part here. There is no third party who's going to authenticate that. So that's why I think like when people lose their private key, it is merely impossible for anyone to even generate it, because once Ethereum blockchain creates that public key and private key, that's it. I think no one else can even try to counterfeit it. You can't even try to create that account one more time, unless you really unless you really take that fork and try to make them out and try to generate that, make your blockchain before that account creation and try to create that account and then go get it. So other than that, protocol itself is promising you. In fact, even the founder who made this blockchain can't even try to get that key for you. So that's the cryptography algorithm, the mathematical function, the algorithms like whatever they have written on top of this asymmetric cryptography is going to give that sanctity for the entire protocol. So moving on to the little deep into what these hash functions are, I think BTC, like Bitcoin, uses SHA-256 algorithm. Ethereum uses more or less the same 256, but it's a key-CAC hash function, which will decipher the data before it encrypts and decrypts the data with the private key of that specific account on that Ethereum network. So digital signatures is a proof, like as I mentioned. So signer use private key to generate the signed message. Only then it is really being valid transaction, where these miners will try to take those transactions and can bundle as a block and try to get the reward by solving the nonce on top of the block. Let's mark your questions at the end of the presentation. I think that's how we work, right, Sai? Oh, I picked the name. Okay, the last.
Yeah, I think you are right. We can move on.
Yeah, correct, Andy. That's right.
Oh, okay. So trying to understand the basic concepts of the blockchain. So it's as I explained on previous sessions. I think treat this blockchain being a distributed database. BTC is the inception, the Bitcoin is the inception, but Ethereum has been sprouted based on the Bitcoin white paper. But Vitalik's vision towards Ethereum is a little beyond the store of value. So I think he started taking these decentralized applications, take part of this immutability and the features like what blockchain is going to offer by providing the same hype, open ledger concepts where Bitcoin is going to offer to the market. So the basic advantages are highly secure, transparent, and it is immutable. Immutable in a sense, I think there is a clear game theory under the hood. So most of you might have even understood, once the transaction get through on a blockchain, it can be reverted. So immutability is that's the prime pillar for a blockchain, where centralized systems can be counterfeited, can be modified without even any party's agreement. But blockchain is going to promise you that, with the game theory saying that the data which has been committed on that specific block cannot be overwritten, cannot be updated. So the data, whatever the blockchain is going to accept at that point in time, is just like a truth on a rock, which can never be changed, altered to the end of its life. So the disadvantages, as usual, the centralized systems will offer more scaling and performance, where blockchain is being lagged by these two parameters. But this is not going to be the case going forward, where lots and lots of projects are working on top of it to bring that scaling into the mix of blockchain by not compromising the advantages what it offered today. But the centralized systems have been in this market for 30 years, 40 years, whereas the blockchain is not even for 10 years. So I think if time is being driven, I think blockchain is going to be as scalable as any centralized system. So if you see the mechanics of Ethereum blockchain, so it exactly consists of a transaction list, block header, Omar list. So this is a typical block. These are the primitives of a block, where each block, whatever Ethereum blockchain is gonna bundle them into the blockchain, carries all these parameters on top of it. So every other transaction, it carries a transaction list from 1 to 100. It carries a block header. I think all these are just like the unique identifiers for any blockchain to identify what this block belongs to, where this block belongs to, what nonce it belongs to, and what transactions it carries. So these are little deeper into the stuff, like which Bitcoin doesn't have as on today, like Omer list and Uncle list, but it is little too much into the stuff. But these are some transactions like where it tries to make the critical bomb for Ethereum to be tough for the miner to go incentivize for the rewards, like what they're gonna get. So these are some mechanics under the hood. So all blocks are visible. I think you have, I think probably many of you might have even explored, like, when you really perform a transaction on Ethereum blockchain, you go look around some block explorer. Etherscan is one among them. So here you can, try to see how many transactions are there. And you see this one, you go try to figure out like what that exact block where your transaction has been sent. So there are 249 transactions which are being bundled on this block, 502446. And I think this is the miner name who got rewarded, and he got rewarded 3 Ether to mine this block. So Ethereum blockchain is a little different than the Bitcoin, because the Bitcoin block times are 10 minutes. I think the finality is like at least a 6 block finality, but Ethereum is a little faster than that. So yeah, at an average, I think there are some times like where the miners will have more hash rate. I think they may confirm the block within 8 to 9 seconds. There are times where it even takes 15 seconds. So, but as an average, we would, as a thumb rule, we can simply say every 10 seconds, Ethereum a block will be mined by the miners and the transactions will be confirmed. At an average, the miners will get 5 ETH per every block, whatever they mine for. So I think many of you might have, maybe, for this part, right? So what is that so different? Like how it has got evolved as an alternative for decentralized applications, like how it has got sprouted up. So I think the store of value has its own means, the immutability has its own means, the distributed ledger, secured, and all those blockchain features are going to be the groundbreaking rules or groundbreaking foundations for monetization purpose. But this Vitalik Buterin had a vision, like I think he's genius by his own evaluations. So he just came up assuming that, I think, what if the code of an application, what we usually do these days, like the functionality of an application, right? What if I really put that functionality of an application in a blockchain and try to make my application interact with that functionality which is sitting on a blockchain, and give that immutability? Like, as I mentioned, you right, immutability is the only key, like, which makes these blockchains flourish day by day. So what if like two parties try to perform a transaction and try to come up with some sort of legal tendering, and the legal tendering, like, hey, at this certain date, I'm going to honor you XYZ amount. So if I'm not going to do that XYZ by that specific date, I'm going to break my contract. Right? I think when we really go meet an attorney to do that, I think he's a central party which we both are relying on, and we go there and try to do a contract, right? So that's what this smart contract has got evolved. So we both are two parties. We are going there. We're trying to put a timeline and saying that, hey, by this time, if I don't meet the requirements, I think I'm going to break the deal, and I am ready to pay my penalty, and I'm going to lose my collateral. I think that's the agreement. If we assume that. So if that third party, like where we are going, who is a central authority, tries to take a side of one and try to cheat other, there is a possibility, right? So I think, what if this contract with these two entities go sit on a blockchain, which no one can even change, which is unhackable, which is uncensored, right? I think censorship resistance is another primitive too. So at that point in time, if both parties try to make a deal on a smart contract, which is sitting on a blockchain, if nothing is going to change, if I'm not going to claim that I think the service which I supposed to get is not being served, I'm going to raise a claim, and that claim will try to initiate that smart contract, and that's it. I don't need to go as central party. I think eliminating the central party, making this contract sitting on a blockchain, making these transactions visible to the entire, I think the ledger is open for the entire world, right? So making these transactions visible and ensuring, taking out that middle man and making those transactions do like what they're supposed to do is the thought process behind that smart contract. So I think when we come back, like we do on a daily basis, every other individual do several contracts with several entities. Not that these contracts are being honored, not that these contracts are being executed as and when actually we try to set some sort of rules on top of it. But when we try to make those counterparties do exchange something on a blockchain and make that commitments work on it. So there's no middleman needed. There is no intervention needed. Things will just get executed as per the law, like what we have written on top of the blockchain. That's why I think there's a big saying in blockchains, so code is law. I think once you write the code and once you make a contract on top of it, nothing is going to change. Nobody can even change. So the key difference between, I think, the mining is absolutely at this point in time. I think they still use ASICs, application-specific integrated hardware. But I think Ethereum is getting transitioned into proof of stake in next few months, most probably by middle of next year. But they don't change anything like coming out of ASICs because EVMs and other stuff. But there are plans, I think, what they are trying to do right after proof of stake migration. Their big target would be moving out of EVM, getting into WebAssembly. I think that is their future plan, maybe down the line for 2 years. I think we may see that WebAssembly be the part of Ethereum too instead of using EVM. So blocks keep the change of balances. I think the Merkle proof is the key. So I think, these are the accounts, like as I mentioned. So I think most of us might have even interacted with it every time we try to interact on a blockchain. So I think the accounts what we use, there are two types of accounts in Ethereum. One is external owned accounts. I think that's what we usually use. Every other account what we carry is an external owned account. There is a contract account, as I mentioned. So I think we deploy code, right? The code carries an account too. So that's how I think Ethereum will treat them as this being a smart contract, this being an external account. That's how they distinguish one from one to other. So I think both of them carries public key, private key. Even the code base will even carry a public key and private key. Both of them can even interact with the blockchain. There will be some differences between one to other. But I think more or less, I think blockchain will treat both of them as same. So a set of one or more external accounts used to store, and I think this is how I think individuals try to transfer their value from one account to another account. So this is an example, like as you all see. I think that this is how I think the cryptography, as I mentioned, for creating an account, Ethereum had used 66 character strings for the private key, where 0x will be appended at the beginning of your private key. And every other public address will carry, it's a key CAC 256 hash. More or less, it's the same SHA 256, but I think they have tweaked more specifically to carry more number of accounts when it goes for a scale. I think just to avoid that contention within the blockchain, I think they've tweaked the underlying SHA-256 algorithm to go better for a long run. So I think Ethereum, so this is how I think, this is the key what and where everybody will try to interact with for any transactions. And this is a key which is so private for an individual, for an account to transact and do a dual signature on top of your transaction, which is a digital signature. So I think if I really go a little deep, so this is an example of a transaction, how a transaction will form, and who will try to sign them, and what type of origination we do. If you see, this is a denomination of rate. This is how the gas will be determined on each transaction. So a smart contract out of its own logic, it's an executable code as I mentioned. It's a Turing complete. I think Bitcoin is not a Turing complete. It's halfway through Turing, but Ethereum is absolutely a modern programming language, which is a complete Turing complete. So think of it this, probably if you guys try to relate this to any of the conventional world programming language, think of this being like a functional programming language. That's all at a high level as it is. So I think it's not going to be, it can, object oriented can be embedded within that, but it is a true function based programming language, which is more or less like a TypeScript. That's how I think the Solidity is all about, but has its own development since it has been developed by Ethereum Foundation, they themselves. It's the functionality, every node contains, like just like the JVM we call for Java, Ethereum carries the same sort of a primitive called EVM, they call Ethereum Virtual Machine, but it's a high level language to bytecode. When developers try to develop the logic for that application, like as I mentioned, as a smart contract, they try to develop them in the Solidity language, and they compile them to the ABI, and which they deploy them to a blockchain, where this EVM will try to take those transactions and try to convert them to a bytecode and execute those instructions based on the transactions what those applications are going to interact with. So every full node on a blockchain carries every other transaction and its state. I think this is just like how the gas is being derived. So there is everybody may have a different problem. Every other blockchain is trying to solve a different problem, right? So some say, hey, my transactions are free. Some say, I think you stake your coins, I think you get transactions free. There is a real reason why Vitalik had introduced gas. So this is something like, why he tried to do that. He don't want application to scam his system. Like say, simply trying to put a garbage transaction on a blockchain, which will try to take the computational power from, or even a buggy code, right? Like, you develop a code which will go on infinite loop. There is no point for that specific code to go run forever and try to take the computation power. So I think there's a smart way, like, every other transaction costs money for an application to run on top of Ethereum. And until and unless we have proper checks and balances on top of your programming logic, nothing is going to be free. Even these days, if you try to interact a buggy code on a blockchain like Ethereum, you're going to spend up like $50 for every transaction you pay, which is too expensive. That is how I think he keep the system not letting like the bad actors to do monkeying into his system. But I think the gas fee is just getting up and up day by day, and Ethereum is not going to be the to-go tool for a lot of applications these days, I think, which they are working out to get them out of a proof of stake and try to make the sharding in scope for coming years, which make these gas fees a little cheaper than what it is now. But it is just like what a 3 to 4 year roadmap from now. So you go, you can verify like what is a gas cost at this point in time with this link. This is how the gas is being calculated for every transaction. This is a big transition like which Ethereum is targeting for coming year, converting themselves from proof of work to proof of stake at this point in time. So last I heard, I think Ethereum has already, they didn't launch their testnet yet, but they are actually running the proof of stake, which we call them as a beacon chain from past almost close to 10 months by now. And it has been running so successful since then. Almost like last I had, there were 6 million or 7 million ETH which has been staked there, and almost like 100,000 validators are validating that network at this point in time. So that's what we meant as a decentralization. So not that few parties try to do the validation, which can easily be colluded. So I think to break a network where 100,000 validators, or even 150,000, I believe. 150,000 validators validating your network. No one knows like who is going to validate that block, who is going to mine that block, and brings that decentralization to the application, to bring that security back into the application, because lots and lots of financial applications are going to be sitting on this Ethereum going forward. I believe almost like more than like 100 billion Bitcoin is sitting in more than that. I think 150 billion Bitcoin has been wrapped and trying to be as a collateral on sitting on Ethereum network as on today. So proof of stake is a transition which Ethereum is targeting for next year. I think once they get there, I think Ethereum is going to be a scalable solution for a lot of application to try on. There are other approaches other than proof of work, which is not energy effective. So I think Ethereum has picked the proof of stake out of the other options, what we see here. This is a typical block. Some of maybe you might have seen most of these transactions, like what we see on Etherscan and all, they're not going to have a full node where a typical miner will have. So a block header is good enough to find the account balances, and that's what we usually see. Not that we don't see how the transaction under the hood might have performed. We don't see the state root out of it. But most of the miner blocks who are mining the Ethereum blockchain will try to carry the entire block header, what we see here. They could able to set this difficulty bomb during EIP 1559, which they have introduced a few months back. So this is something like, they themselves, Ethereum blockchain, they themselves put Ethereum at a high risk, making sure that they are not going to run this proof of work forever. Every block, like whatever these miners are mining as of today, will get difficult day by day, and which is making Ethereum stakeholders to divine their work to move them to proof of stake. I think that's what this difficulty bomb is. They had implemented this difficulty bomb along with the EIP 1559, which has went live from past 5 months. So as I explained, like how the programming has been worked out, Solidity is the only programming language at this point in time which is native to Ethereum. But there are other clients like who have started integrating. Like there are some other tools which they really try to build on top of this Ethereum base layer, which accepts Python, which accepts. I think they have started working on several other programming languages like Rust. I think they have developed one tool, and I think this toolkit is evolving day by day. But most of the smart contracts which are native to Ethereum are being driven by Solidity. Though we develop another programming language, it has to have again the bytecode will get converted and try to sit on top of a blockchain. But the Ethereum virtual machine will only try to accept Solidity being the only language. So they may found some interpreter which will try to convert these instructions back to the Solidity language. I think that's how these tools are being worked out to make other programming languages go sit on top of Ethereum. So this is how a sample Solidity smart contract programming look like. It's a basic TypeScript programming language with small deviations on the standards. That's all from my end. I think we are at the top of the hour. I can take any questions you guys may have.
Sir, last slides you kind of skipped off. Do you want to go in detail?
A little deep on this.
Yeah, the last parts. Yeah, what are those?
So this is if someone wants to try, like go build their own sandbox and try to do, I think you can use this GitHub and try to get started. There are some sample scripts, the test RPC, how the workflow will go from one to other, like how you deploy, how you try to compile and try to deploy them on a testnet.
So Ethereum Js and sir malli Ethereum Js ki solidity ki teda enti?
So Ethereum Js is just like, as I mentioned you, it's a wrapper script. Like, they have started developing, making Ethereum acceptable for every other language is the goal. So it has nothing to do with, so Ethereum Foundation has nothing to do with it. These are like open source projects. Like one guy started accepting Python being the language. So you develop your code in Python, you deploy them. So, you try to have his RPC. You go to connect using his RPC. That RPC will try to convert those calls and try to put them on the blockchain. So these are like gateways for different languages. So this is a gateway for JavaScript.
Okay. Java क्या है sir?
What is it?
Java. Does Java have anything? Java.
I haven't heard. I think it has its own dependencies. It seems, I think the functional programming is the key. I haven't heard. I may be wrong, but I haven't heard that. I see a lot of development being focused on Python, as I see.
Okay.
Other than the Solidity, which is a native.
Nice.
Should I stop the screen share and take any questions? Any questions? I'm happy to answer.
So if anybody has no questions, probably I can ask. But if somebody has questions, sir, the part that you mentioned about the upgrade, right? What is that? Can you talk a little more about the upgrade that happened? EIP
Oh yeah, EIP 1559. I think what has been done. If I see this one, the gas part, right? Whatever I've shown here.
Yeah, that part with Ethereum is somewhat confused. I mean, you have to read
so
and
I
keep
think
up.
this is how. I think that is just like. See. See, the miners, whoever mines Ethereum, they will get the rewards just by mining the blockchain, right? Not that they have anything to do with the transaction cost, what we are paying, to be frank. You see, we all transact on a blockchain, right? But we pay $50, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say, for example, we set like, there is a base fee GUI we set, and based on the demand, I think we may put even more. The average price we put so that miners will try to take our transactions and bundle them to incentivize miners. But the intent of putting gas is just not to cheat the system. Like, as I mentioned he didn't want monkeys to play the system. That's all. He don't want these transactions to be like the transaction cost, whatever we pay. His intent is not to make those transaction costs go to miner. That's not his intent at the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened, I think, going forward, I think these Ethereum miners became greedy. So I think everybody want to bundle their transaction. They want to do their transaction right away, right? Everybody want to have that rush. So what they've started saying that while trying to, it's just like a tip on top of it. You get the drink when you order, but when you say, hey, I think we are on a line, we say, I think I need my cup of coffee, but I'm ready to pay. The Starbucks coffee costs you only $2. Example, right? But that is what the miner will get. Mm-hmm. But when you go stand on a line, you have like 100 guys sitting in front of you, and you want to get your coffee. What do? You say, I'm ready to pay $10 for my coffee. Get me that coffee right away. So what that Starbucks vendor will do, he'll try to serve coffees. He'll try to serve everybody. You don't want to lose business. Miners don't want to lose business. They will serve. That's why I think some of your transactions may take 2 hours, 5 days, 10 days, something like that. But eventually your transaction will be confirmed if you don't care about when are you going to get bundled. But like the miners will try to serve the customers who pay the most, right? So this is just like getting a scammy day by day, where people, he started saying they don't try to pull the transactions, though the block is empty. So I think the miners are even playing around to ensure that the users will try to repay the transaction with a higher cost. So what this EIP 1559 has done, it is checked to the answer for these miners, making them ready for this proof of stake integration. What this guy has done, so he has developed, there will be a base fee where the base fee, like what his intent was at the very beginning, will be going to every transaction we pay. I think there will be a base fee. There will be a tip on top of it. So all he simply had mentioned, miners should not come to the transactions. They simply have to carry the transactions and move on and mine, because they get rewarded, right? They get rewarded. 5 Ethereum will be rewarded every 10 sec for that miner. And at a cost of $3,500, I think they are well off. They don't need any other incentive. That their incentives are good enough to mine those blocks. So all he has done, I think EIP 1559, I think this guy had started putting up, so that way you'll have some sort of expectation, right? Not that people will simply say, hey, I'm ready to pay $10, I think get me bundled up. Instead of doing that, so to bring the deflationary concept into the protocol, so they have put that base fee. The base fee must need to be paid for every other transaction, so that way we don't monkey the system, right? So he don't want the system to be monkeyed. That is for sure. So the base fee will be collected from all the users, but will be burned. Burned in a sense, I think that base fee will be sent to a smart contract, which is a Genesis contract where no one have access to it. No public key, no private key will be given. So every time a transaction is being burned, so you see this one, I think if you are seeing, you can still see my screen, right?
So that's how a burn happens. Basically, it goes to Genesis block. Genesis address
exact Genesis address where no one have access. So means you are collecting the circulation from the entire market and trying to keep it on one account, which will never be transacted.
So eventually that will be humongous.
It can be, because every as I see last time, I think, let me see.
What is the guarantee that somebody will not, even Vitalik or somebody will not use that? Somebody.
No one can access that account. It's
why is that why is that account special? Because
it's a system account. There is a system contract. So this is part of system contract. So where I think there was a big fight between these miners. They initially thought, I think they should not allow this because they are losing money. Right? They are losing money. So I think 5 months or 6 months they have given. I think Whiteley was so strong, which they couldn't even try to play around with him. So he said, I think they did mention that we really want to go for a fork. We will fork if you really try to implement EIP 1559. We will not accept. Then he said, I think that's fine. Fork is possible. If fork is possible, we're not going to. I stay with the chain like who will accept this EIP 1559. And that's when actually everybody kept quiet. But this is a game changer, as I mentioned. So if you see this one, if they don't implement proof of stake even, ETH will go deflationary with the number of transactions just by implementing this EIP 1559. Every minute, 10 ETH is being burnt. Burnt in a sense, the 10 ETH is being sent to that system contract.
So, inkoka question, sir. Are they putting a cap on this? I mean, these are things which are kind of very hard to understand.
The biggest problem, because I think that's so the tokenomics. I think ETH had a big perception, right? Everybody say, I think I have a cap. So there are two ways to control your inflation. Right? There are two ways to control inflation. One, to keep an inflation like 5%, 3% every year, you generate those tokens. I think that is one way to control inflation. But again, everybody assume that everybody accept that inflation rate, whatever rate we come up with, 3%, 5%, right? So ETH don't have anything at this point in time, but what they expect, ultrasound money, that's what they're calling, right? Ultrasound money, ETH is going to be ultrasound money. Because the reason for that, with the rate this EIP 1559 is burning, and with the rate where your miner rewards, whatever we pay now, is going to be taken out from the system. So because once you go to proof of stake, your validators will get money, because 6%, 7%, whatever they get rewards. But that 6%, 7% what protocol is giving, and the transaction fees what we are paying today and on top of it EAP 1559, ETH is going to be deflationary. For Bitcoin to get deflationary, we need to wait until 21 million, right? For ETH, we don't need to. Even by next year, ETH will be deflationary, undoubtedly. Because the coins will be minted, because the rewards will be, right? Because they can't put a cap. So either miners will get rewarded or the validators will get rewarded on proof of stake system. You have to generate the tokens. The protocol have to generate the tokens. But the amount of tokens what it generate to the validators and the amount of tokens what this EAP 1559 is burning and the amount of tokens what the miners are not getting right from that point will definitely make a -2 deflation, something like that. They're saying that little bit deflationary from next year onwards.
Okay. So ఈ ప్రోటోకాల్ ఏదైతే ఉందో లైక్ దే ఆర్ మైనస్, దే ఆర్ స్టేక్ వాలిడేటర్స్. ఇప్పుడు బైనాన్స్ స్మార్ట్ చైన్ ఉంది. బైనాన్స్ స్మార్ట్ చైన్ దానికి ఒక అప్పర్ క్యాప్ ఇచ్చారు, రైట్? అప్పర్ క్యాప్ ఉంది అండ్ వాళ్ళు పీరియాడికల్గా ఎవ్రీ క్వార్టర్ బర్న్ చేసుకుంటూ వస్తామని చెప్తారు. చేస్తారు లేదు మనకు తెలియదు, కానీ చేస్తున్నామని చెప్తారు. సో దీనికి అప్పర్ క్యాప్ అనేది దీనికి ఒక కన్ఫ్యూజింగ్ పార్ట్ ఏంటంటే దీనికి వాలిడేటర్స్ ఉంటారు, మైనర్స్ ఉంటారు.
అది అప్పుడు ప్రూఫ్ ఆఫ్ స్టేక్ వెళ్ళేంత వరకు మాత్రమే.
ఓకే అది మైనర్ కంప్లీట్ గా మూవ్ అయిపోతారా? ఆ రిక్స్ ఎక్స్పెన్సెస్ పెట్టిన ఇన్ఫ్రాస్ట్రక్చర్ అంతా వేస్ట్ అయిపోతుంది. ఎప్పటికి వెళ్తున్నది? అది ఎప్పటి నుంచో చెప్తున్నారు అది
అంటే ఇప్పుడు ప్రస్తుతానికి ఇప్పుడు వాళ్ళు ఏంటంటే ఏపీ 1559 అయిపోయినాక ఐ థింక్ దే ఆర్ వర్కింగ్ ఆన్ మెర్జ్ నౌ. సో ఆల్ ఐ హ్యాడ్ మెర్జ్ టెస్ట్ నెట్ ఒకటి అయింది. సో ఇది ఇథీరియం ఎప్పుడు కూడా అట్లీస్ట్ వాట్ ఎవర్ ద ప్రాజెక్ట్ యూ యాడ్ 2 quarters or 3 quarters on top of it.
హ్యూజ్ వనరబుల్ రిస్క్ ఉంటుంది కదా. ఇప్పుడు నా డబ్బులని నాకు ఇప్పుడు నా కంపెనీ పెట్టాను, దానిలో పెద్ద పెద్ద రిస్క్ పెట్టాను, నా ఎట్లనో ఆపేస్తారు ఇది అని తెలిసినప్పుడు ఐ వోంట్ బి ఇన్వెస్టింగ్ ఎనీ మోర్ మనీ. సో
యాక్చువల్లీ ఇథీరియం యాక్చువల్గా ఈ బీకన్ చైన్ లాంచ్ చేశాడు లాస్ట్ డిసెంబర్ కి లాంచ్ చేశాడు ఈ బీకన్ చైన్. బీకన్ చైన్ అంటే ప్రూఫ్ ఆఫ్ స్టేక్ చైన్ అనమాట. ప్రూఫ్ ఆఫ్ స్టేక్ చైన్ లాంచ్ చేసినప్పుడు యాక్చువల్గా కోడ్ ఎలా రాశాడంటే వాడు స్మార్ట్ కాంట్రాక్ట్ ఏం చేశాడంటే బీకన్ చైన్ ఆటోమేటిక్ ఏం అవుతుంది 1 million ETH స్టేక్ చేస్తేనే అవుతుంది. ఎప్పుడు స్టేక్ చేస్తే అప్పుడు డేట్ ఏమీ లేదు. సో వాడు ఏంటంటే వాడు ఫస్ట్ వాడు ఒక 1000 వ్యాలిడేటర్లు 100 వ్యాలిడేటర్లు వాటికి పెట్టాడు, అంటే వాడి దగ్గర ఉన్న కాయిన్స్ తో. సో తర్వాత ఫస్ట్ ఒక 3 weeks దాకా అసలు ఎవరు మూమెంట్ లేదు. డిసెంబర్ 1st వచ్చేటప్పటికి ఐ థింక్ 1 million ETH 1.5 దాటిపోయింది. ఇప్పుడు ఐ థింక్ 7 million ETH హ్యాస్ బీన్ స్టేక్ నౌ.
ఓకే గాట్ ఇట్. సో వాడి ఇంటెలిజెన్స్ అంతా అక్కడ ఉంది. సో ఎలా కంట్రోల్ చేశారంటే 1 million లేకపోతే అసలు స్టార్ట్ అవుతుంది.
ఎప్పుడు అవుతుంది అంటే చాలా మంది ఉంటారంటే మేము ఫౌండేషన్ ఉంది కదా, ఫౌండేషన్ పెట్టేసి చేసేయచ్చు కదా. అలా లేదు. యాక్చువల్గా వాడి ఉద్దేశం ఏంటంటే అందరూ పార్టిసిపేట్ చేయాలి, అంటే డీసెంట్రలైజేషన్ అవ్వాలని. ల్యాప్టాప్ లోంచి కూడా రన్ చేయాలి దీన్ని. ఇప్పుడు డీసెంట్రలైజేషన్ అంటే చాలా మంది అర్థం కాదు. ఇప్పుడు బైనాన్స్ స్మార్ట్ చైన్ లో దేర్ ఆర్ 21 వ్యాలిడేటర్స్. కంప్లీట్లీ సెంట్రలైజ్డ్. యూ క్యాన్ బి ఎ వ్యాలిడేటర్. వాడు బైనాన్స్ వాడు యాక్చువల్ గా ఇప్పుడు ఐ డోంట్ నో 1 million BNB స్టేక్ చేయాలో అన్నాడు కానీ, బట్ అబ్సల్యూట్లీ యూ హ్యావ్ టు పుట్ అన్ అప్లికేషన్ టు హిమ్ అండ్ హీ విల్ రివ్యూ ఇట్ అండ్ అప్రూవ్. ఐ డోంట్ థింక్ సో వీ కెన్ బి ఎ బైనాన్స్ స్మార్ట్ చైన్ వ్యాలిడేటర్. ఐ డోంట్ థింక్ సో. కనీసం కొంతవరకు మన పాలిగన్ లో అన్న కొంత ట్రాన్స్పరెన్సీ ఉంది. యూ కెన్ బి ఎ వ్యాలిడేటర్. ఏది మీరు ఎవరైనా డెలిగేట్ చేస్తే, మీ టోకెన్ మీరు స్టేక్ చేస్తే. స్మార్ట్ చైన్
గవర్నమెంట్ కూడా పట్టుకుంటారు కదా. గవర్నమెంట్ కూడా దే మే స్టార్ట్ అటాకింగ్ దోస్ సెంట్రలైజ్డ్.
ఇప్పుడు అది సెంట్రలైజ్డ్ ఎందుకు అవ్వకూడదు అంటే వ్యాలిడేటర్ అడ్రస్ తెలిసిపోయినా కూడా ఇబ్బంది కదా. యాక్చువల్ గా ఐ థింక్ దే కెన్ ఈవెన్ ట్రై టు సీజ్ దెమ్, రైట్? దే కెన్ సీజ్ దే డేటా సెంటర్. దే కెన్ డూ డీసెంట్రలైజ్. వైట్ లీక్ విజన్ ఏంటంటే డీసెంట్రలైజ్. ఇప్పుడు 250 gig సైజ్ అయిపోయింది. ఇది ఇప్పుడు ఇథీరియం బ్లాక్ చైన్ ఆల్మోస్ట్ 300 gig అనుకుంటా. సో ప్రాబ్లం ఏంటి, 300 gig ని ఒక ఆర్డినరీ మ్యాన్ సెల్ ఫోన్ లో మనం స్టేక్ చేయలేం కదా. ఇప్పుడు సెల్ ఫోన్ నుంచి కూడా చేయగలగాలి, అంటే లైట్ క్లయింట్లు పెట్టి, అంటే ఫుల్ లోడ్ లేకుండా కూడా చేయొచ్చు. వాడి విజన్ ఏంటంటే దీన్ని స్కేలింగ్. అందుకే ఇప్పుడు దిస్ ఈస్ నాట్ అన్ ఆన్సర్ ఫర్ స్కేలింగ్. ఇప్పుడు నెక్స్ట్ ఇయర్ బేకన్ చైన్ మెర్జ్ అయినా కూడా ఈ ప్రాబ్లం ఉంటుంది, ఏది గ్యాస్ కాస్ట్ ఉంటుంది. సో అందుకనే మోస్ట్ ప్రాబ్లీ ద అదర్ ప్లేయర్స్ మే ఎమర్జ్. స్టిల్ market, they still continue to capture the market share of Ethereum. They may continue. I think the real answer for Ethereum for scaling will only happen once they complete the sharding అవ్వాలి.
ఓకే.
ఇప్పుడు Ethereum ఇప్పుడు ఒక చైన్ ఉంది కదా, ఇది చైన్ 1 కదా, ఏం చేస్తారంటే 64 చైన్స్ వస్తాయి Ethereum కి. 64 ఇది ఒక చైన్ మాత్రమే. ఇప్పుడు ఫస్ట్ స్టెప్ ఏంటంటే అన్ని ఫస్ట్ షార్డింగ్ చేసి ఆ బీకన్ చైన్ తో మెర్జ్ అనుకున్నారు ప్లాన్, అది లాస్ట్ ఇయర్. సో ఇప్పుడు ఈ 7 million ETH దాంట్లో లాక్ చేశారు కదా, లాక్ చేసినప్పుడు ఎవ్రీబడి దే కాంట్ ఈవెన్ టేక్ దోస్ మనీ అవుట్ unless the merge happens. 7 million ETH పెద్ద పెద్ద ఎంటర్ప్రైజెస్ కూడా పెట్టారులేండి. 7 million ETH is locked. If merge does not happen, I think their money is just like got frozen. That's it. సో ఇప్పుడు ఏంటంటే మెర్జ్ చేయాలి వాళ్ళకి. ఆ 7 million ETH ఫ్రీ చేయడం కోసం మెర్జ్ చేస్తాడు. అదే ప్రెషర్ ఎట్టి పరిస్థితుల్లో ఫస్ట్ క్వార్టర్ కి సెకండ్ క్వార్టర్ కన్నా మెర్జ్ అవుతుంది. మెర్జ్ అయితే మైండ్ లో వెళ్ళిపోతారు. మెర్జ్ అయినాక ఐ థింక్ దిల్ ఫోకస్ ఆన్ షార్డింగ్.
ఓకే. సో దీనిలో మ్యాటిక్ చేసే పని ఏంటి సార్? అది మ్యాటిక్ చేసే పని ఏంటంటే అది
మ్యాటిక్ చాలా మంది చిన్న కన్ఫ్యూజన్ ఏంటంటే మ్యాటిక్ L2 సైడ్ చైనా అని కదా. కొంతమంది ఏమంటారంటే కన్ఫ్యూజన్ లో మ్యాటిక్ L2 అంటారు. నా లెక్కలో మ్యాటిక్ L2 అని క్లెయిమ్ చేసుకున్న తప్పు. మ్యాటిక్ L2 కాదు, మ్యాటిక్ సైడ్ చైన్. ఎందుకంటే ఇప్పుడు మ్యాటిక్ కిను బైనాన్స్ స్మార్ట్ చైన్ కి దేర్ ఇస్ నో డిఫరెన్స్ టు మీ. ఎందుకంటే రెండింటికి నేటివ్ టోకెన్స్ ఉంటాయి వాళ్ళ దాంట్లో. సో ఇప్పుడు L2 అంటే ఏంటంటే ఇప్పుడు L2 ఒక సొల్యూషన్ స్కేలింగ్ కి. ఒక L2 ఆర్బిట్రమ్ అని ఉంది. ఆర్బిట్రమ్, ఆప్టిమిజము, DYDX అని ఉంది, చూసినారా మీరు? ఇవన్నీ L2 ఇవన్నీ. ఎందుకంటే ప్లాస్మా మీద ఆప్టిమిస్టిక్ రోల్అప్స్, అదేంటిది ఇంకో రోల్అప్, డిఫరెంట్ రోల్అప్స్ మీద బేస్ చేసుకున్న L2s అనమాట. వాళ్ళకి ఏంటంటే ఇప్పుడు ఇక్కడ ఒక 10 transactions మనం Ethereum చేస్తున్నాం కదా. సో ఇప్పుడు ఇవాళ టుడే యాజ్ ఆన్ టుడే మనం ఆర్బిట్రమ్ అని ఉంది, ఆప్టిమిజం అని ఉన్నాయి సైడ్ చైన్స్. ఈ సైడ్ చైన్స్ మీకు వెళ్ళి మీరు ట్రాన్సాక్షన్ చేశారనుకోండి, మీకు $1 అయిపోద్ది ట్రాన్సాక్షన్. కానీ అది ఎంత గ్యారెంటీడ్ అంటే మనం డైరెక్ట్ గా ఒక 10 ట్రాన్సాక్షన్ అయిపోయినాక వాడు బండిల్ చేసి మళ్ళీ కన్ఫర్మేషన్ ఈ చైన్ మీద ఇస్తాడు. సో మనం ఛాలెంజ్ కూడా చేయొచ్చు. అంటే లోకల్ డేటా ఉంటుంది, మీరు బ్రిడ్జ్లు ఉంటాయి. బట్ మ్యాటిక్ అంటే నా లెక్కలో ఏంటంటే స్కేలింగ్ కి ఆన్సర్ ఈజీ, పోర్టబుల్ కదా. ఇప్పుడు Ethereum కోడ్ బేస్ ని తీసుకెళ్లి ఫోర్క్ చేసేసి మ్యాటిక్ పెట్టారు కదా. సో ఏమవుతుంది, మీరు ఈ కోడ్ ఈ స్మార్ట్ కాంట్రాక్ట్ ఇక్కడ రన్ అయింది అనుకోండి, ఇదే స్మార్ట్ కాంట్రాక్ట్ మ్యాటిక్ లో పెట్టి రన్ చేయొచ్చు. అక్కడ స్మార్ట్ కాంట్రాక్ట్ బ్రిడ్జ్ ఇచ్చారు వాళ్ళు. అసెట్స్ మార్చుకోవాలంటే బ్రిడ్జ్ పెట్టుకోవాలి.
బైనాన్స్ స్మార్ట్ చైన్ కి మ్యాటిక్ కి తేడా ఏంటి సార్? ఒకవేళ రెండు సైడ్ చైన్స్ అయితే
రెండు సైడ్ చైన్స్ వాళ్ళు ఏం చేశారంటే ఇట్లాగే 21 వ్యాలిడేటర్స్ ఇక్కడ పెట్టాడు కదా. ఇది మన కన్సెన్సస్ అల్గారిథం లో వాళ్ళు ఏం చేశారంటే ఈ కోడ్ బేస్ ని తీసుకుని ప్రూఫ్ ఆఫ్ వర్క్ అది వాళ్ళు ఐ థింక్ దే మేడ్ దెమ్ యాజ్ డీపాస్. 21 వ్యాలిడేటర్ డీపాస్ మనం ఐ థింక్ లాస్ట్ టైం మనం మాట్లాడుకున్నాం, యూఎస్ కూడా డీపాస్ డెలిగేటెడ్ ప్రూఫ్ ఆఫ్ స్టేక్ కదా. సో ఎందుకు మ్యాటిక్ ఫాస్ట్, ఎందుకు బైనాన్స్ స్మార్ట్ చైన్ ఫాస్ట్ అంటే ఏముంది, నాకు తెలిసి బ్లాక్ టైం కూడా తగ్గించారు. నాకు తెలిసి 3 second కన్ఫర్మేషన్ బ్లాక్ టైమా బైనాన్స్ స్మార్ట్ చైన్ కి ఎంతో ఫాస్ట్ అయ్యారు.
చాలా ఫాస్ట్ ఉంటుంది సార్,
చాలా ఫాస్ట్. ఏముంది ఇప్పుడు 21 వ్యాలిడేటర్స్ ఉంటారు, 21 వ్యాలిడేటర్స్ రొటేట్ అవుతుంటది, ఎవ్రీ 3 seconds రొటేట్ అయిపోతుంది, చాలా ఈజీ కదా. ఇప్పుడు ఇక్కడ అనుకోండి, ఇప్పుడు మైనర్లు అంతా హ్యాష్ పవర్ పెట్టి ఆ నాన్స్ కనిపెట్టి 15 seconds లో కన్ఫర్మ్ చేస్తారు.
ఓకే.
సో వాళ్ళు ఏం చేశారంటే ఐ థింక్ స్పీడ్, స్కేలబిలిటీ ఫాస్ట్ అయిపోతుంది మీరు డీపాస్కి వెళ్తే. కొన్ని అప్లికేషన్స్ కి మనం ఐ థింక్ వీ డోంట్ నీడ్ టు వరీ అబౌట్ డీసెంట్రలైజేషన్, అంతే కదా. ఇప్పుడు ఇప్పుడు మన ఫేస్బుక్ ఉంది, హూ కేర్స్ అబౌట్ డీసెంట్రలైజేషన్? ఆల్ వి ఆస్క్ టు హ్యావ్ ద స్పీడ్ ఆన్ ఇట్. ఐ థింక్ దే ఆర్ నాట్ ఫైనాన్షియల్ ట్రాన్సాక్షన్స్. అదే ఇప్పుడు యాక్చువల్గా నేను ఐ థింక్ ప్రాబ్లీ వి కొల్లెటర్లు పెట్టాము, యాక్చువల్గా స్టేక్ చేశారు, మనకి రివార్డ్స్ రావాలి, ఇదంతా ఫైనాన్షియల్ ట్రాన్సాక్షన్. ఐ థింక్ వి నీడ్ మోర్ సెక్యూరిటీ దేర్. సో ఐ థింక్ Matic, Binance, I think they are actually serving NFT ఉంది. maybe the collectible value is only $10. Like how come they can pay $40 on Ethereum network, but they really want to run NFT. So they really want to mint an NFT. I think they really want to put an audit, and they really want to take a bid and try to sell their product. So వాళ్ళంతా ఏం చేస్తారు, probably they look around wherever possible. But eventually, when they go big, I think they can even try to migrate themselves to Ethereum. So I think ఇప్పుడు NFL NFTs ఉన్నాయి. So INE, I think probably they're too expensive. I think they are ready to pay this for the security. So I think మనం లాకర్ లో పెట్టే కొన్ని, వాలెట్ లో పెట్టే కొన్ని కదా క్యాష్. సో అలా మనం డిస్టింగ్విష్ చేస్తారు. వాలెట్ లో పెట్టే కలెక్టిబుల్స్ వాలెట్ లో పెడతాము, బ్యాంక్ లో పెట్టే కలెక్టిబుల్స్ బ్యాంక్ లో పెడతాం. సో ఐ థింక్ Ethereum is like a bank. Not that we are good enough to do everyday transaction in a bank. So బ్యాంక్ లాకర్కి వెళ్ళి సేఫ్ బాక్స్ ని యాక్సెస్ చేస్తాం ఎవ్రీ డే? ఐ డోంట్ థింక్ సో. వన్స్ ఏ వీక్ కదా. సో మేబీ మోస్ట్ వాల్యుబుల్ స్టఫ్ అక్కడ పెడతాము. ఐ థింక్ డైలీ యూజబుల్ స్టఫ్ అంతా ప్రాబ్లీ బైనాన్స్ స్మార్ట్ చైన్, మ్యాటిక్, they're good alternatives for it.
Okay, got it. Yeah, anybody has any more questions? Okay sir, I think we are
I think thanks everyone, and
thank you so much everybody. Yeah.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Satish. Yeah, thanks very much, Andy. Yeah, it's really helpful to speak. And beginner name, I think I'm definitely too many bounces for me today, but I'm sure that I'm gonna learn during this journey. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, just ఇంకొకసారి చూడండి సార్. ఇంకొకసారి చూస్తే I mean it's a learning curve, right? Like we'll all get better at this. So just ఇంకొకసారి చూడండి, that should be good. Yeah, I think we'll end the call, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.